Imagine waking up one morning and your world has gone dark and cold. Not just your room, but your entire neighborhood, your city, your state. For millions of Texans in February 2021, this wasn't a scene from a disaster movie. It was their terrifying reality. This is the story of the Great Texas Power Failure, a crisis that brought the Lone Star State to its knees. It all started with a forecast. An unusually severe winter storm was brewing, one that promised to plunge Texas into a deep freeze. Meteorologists called it Winter Storm Uri. For most places, this would mean stocking up on bread and milk, maybe getting a day or two off school. But in Texas, a state known for its scorching summers, this was a different kind of threat altogether. The state's infrastructure, especially its power grid, just wasn't built for this kind of cold. As the storm rolled in, temperatures plummeted to levels not seen in decades. In Dallas, it dropped to -2 degrees Fahrenheit. Houston saw single-digit temperatures. Snow and ice coated everything, turning highways into skating rinks and bringing life to a standstill. But the real crisis was happening silently, within the sprawling network of power plants and transmission lines that make up the Texas grid. Texas has a unique power grid, managed by an organization called ERCOT, the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. Unlike the rest of the continental United States, which is split into two major interconnected grids, Texas operates its own largely isolated island of electricity. This was done intentionally to avoid federal regulation. For decades, it worked. But this independence also meant that when things went wrong, Texas couldn't easily borrow power from its neighbors. And in February 2021, things went very, very wrong. As the cold intensified, Texans did what anyone would do. They cranked up their heaters. Demand for electricity soared to an unprecedented winter peak. At the same time, the sources of that electricity began to fail one by one. The extreme cold was the culprit. Natural gas wells froze solid, cutting off the primary fuel for many power plants. The pipelines that transport the gas lost pressure. Wind turbines, some of which weren't winterized, froze and stopped spinning. A coal plant shut down. Even a nuclear reactor had to go offline because of a frozen water pipe. The supply of power was collapsing just as the demand for it was skyrocketing. ERCOT's operators watched their screens in horror. The frequency of the grid, which needs to be stable at 60 Hz, was dropping dangerously. If it dropped too low, it could trigger a catastrophic, cascading failure that could physically destroy equipment and lead to a statewide blackout lasting not days, but weeks or even months. To prevent this black start scenario, they had only one option: intentionally cut power to millions of people. It was a desperate move to save the entire system from complete collapse. And so, the rolling blackouts began. But they weren't rolling. For many, the power went off and just stayed off. What was meant to be a temporary, rotating inconvenience turned into a multi-day ordeal. Millions were left without heat in freezing, sub-zero temperatures. Pipes in homes and businesses froze and then burst, unleashing a second wave of disaster, a water crisis. Water treatment plants lost power, and pipes across the state fractured. Boil water notices were issued for over 14 million people. Suddenly, even clean, safe water was a luxury. The stories from those days are harrowing. Families huddled together under blankets, burning furniture in their fireplaces to stay warm. People slept in their cars, running the engine for a few minutes at a time to get a blast of heat. Hospitals, which were supposed to be exempt from the outages, lost power and water, forcing them to transfer critically ill patients in the middle of a blizzard. The human cost was immense. People died from hypothermia in their own homes. Others died from carbon monoxide poisoning, trying to stay warm with barbecue grills or generators used indoors. The official death toll would eventually climb to over 200 people, though many believe the true number is much higher. As the days wore on, frustration turned to anger. How could this happen? How could the energy capital of America be left so powerless? The blame game began almost immediately. Fingers were pointed at ERCOT for mismanaging the grid, at the power companies for not winterizing their equipment, and at state regulators and politicians for years of deregulation and a lack of oversight. It turned out that warnings about the grid's vulnerability to extreme cold had been issued for years. Most notably, after a similar, smaller-scale freeze in 2011. But those warnings were largely ignored. The recommended upgrades were voluntary, and in a market driven by profit, many companies chose not to make the expensive investment. Slowly, as temperatures began to rise, the grid stabilized. Power was restored, home by home, neighborhood by neighborhood. The ice melted, and the immediate danger passed. But the scars of the crisis remained. Texans were left with destroyed homes, astronomical electricity bills that in some cases reached tens of thousands of dollars, and a profound sense of betrayal. The system they had trusted had failed them on every level. In the aftermath, the Texas legislature passed new laws requiring power plants and some natural gas facilities to weatherize their equipment to meet new standards. ARCO's leadership was overhauled, but many questions still linger. Have the changes been enough to prevent another catastrophe? In an era of increasing climate volatility and extreme weather events, the 2021 Texas power failure serves as a stark warning. It's a story about more than just a winter storm. It's a story about infrastructure, regulation, the devastating consequences when a system designed for profit is confronted with the harsh realities of nature. It's a reminder that the power we so often take for granted is fragile, and the people responsible for it have a life or death duty to protect it. The lights are back on in Texas, but the memory of that cold, dark week in February continues to cast a long shadow. Thanks for watching. If you found this story important, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the events that shape our world. Stay safe out there.